a while, Xianxia took a deep breath and led the way into the maze. First Bailuo naturally followed without a word. This kind of labyrinth-like terrain often contains many restrictions and formations. In addition, now that the Emperor Garden is officially opened, the degree of danger inside has greatly increased, so Xianxia dare not take it lightly on this journey. The life's exterminator demon eye is always active, inspecting the surrounding environment, so as not to accidentally trigger any restrictions. After 2 full days, Xianxia led Bailuo out from the other direction of the maze. Both of them looked a little tired and worried. Being able to leave the maze, Xianxia's memory accounted for a large part of the reason, and there was a little bit of luck. Different from the only restriction in the labyrinth that day, Xianxia and Bila actually encountered many ancient puppets in it. Each of the ancient puppets has different shapes, high and low in strength, but without exception, they are all equivalent to that of the Void Return stage. To the extent the strongest has reached the 3rd order Void Return stage, which has really caused Xianxia a lot of trouble. Fortunately, Xianxia is not an ordinary Void Return stage, rushing all the way, relying on the strength of the Dragon Bone Verdant Sword and the Firebird item spirit coupled with the overbearing power of the stone puppet. It is not dangerous. Especially the stone puppets have a strong restraint effect on these ancient puppets. After passing through the maze, 2 arched round doors appeared in front of them, one black and the other white, which looked weird. The white one was made of white jade, and the black one was dark and contrasting. But behind the 2 arched round doors, there is a chaos and nothingness. Spiritual mind penetrates into it without noticing in it. On the surface, it looks like a lake, unfathomable. Bailuo stayed for a moment, and exclaimed, "Space Formation Gate." Xianxia glanced at her unexpectedly, nodded and said, "Yes, you actually recognize this?" "Well, I've seen it before," Bailuo said with a solemn expression. "Which one should we enter?" "I'll tell you later. Let me recover for a while." Xianxia smiled slightly. When he came here last time, he was entangled with Feijitu and others for a long time. He don't know which space gate to choose to enter. After all, choosing between the 2 choices is really awkward. Most people tend to choose white, because black often means dangerous and treacherous. But in fact, no matter which space gate you choose, there is not much danger, but the location you reach is different. Feijitu and others entered the white space gate that day, where they encountered a jade coffin and touched the Emperor Garden restriction. Let the Emperor Garden be born, and in the jade coffin, there was a person lying quietly. Star Emperor. The earth-shattering battle tens of thousands of years ago caused the great emperor to fall into a deep sleep, and this Emperor Garden was her sleeping place. Xianxia also heard this information from Yang Yan. After all, Yang Yan was a spirit clone of the great emperor and have some vague understanding of those secrets. What Xianxia and Du Cece and others entered was the Black Space Array Gate, where the old woman of Void Return stage fell, and Heaven-shaking pillar was also obtained there. After half an hour, Xianxia and Bailuo had recovered. Under Xianxia's instructions, the 2 of them walked towards the Black Space Array door step by step. Looking at the bottomless space formation gate, Bailuo couldn't help being a little bit nervous, stretched out her hand to hold Xianxia's clothes. Xianxia looked relaxed and calm. He took her and rushed into the black formation gate with an indescribable sense of weightlessness enveloping him, and the 2 of them were dizzy, and when they recovered, they had already arrived at another place. Looking around, Xianxia is happy. This is the right place. On that day, he and the old woman and others passed through the black space formation gate and came here. "Come with me," Xianxia said to Bila, and walked in front of her in a familiar way, as if he was looking for something while walking. Bailuo looked blank but didn't ask much. It is clearly a garden-like place, with flowers everywhere, small bridges and flowing water, and rockery. The scenery is very unique. Xianxia looked in front of the rockery, and slowly shook his head from time to time. After a while, his eyes suddenly brightened, and he rushed towards the location of a rockery. There, a faint fragrance wafted out, which made people feel refreshed, and even the injured Bila, who had not healed, looked better at this moment. Soon, Xianxia arrived in front of the rockery. Looking at a familiar pool in front of him, Xianxia couldn't help grinning. Found it. Bai Luo was curious, and looked at the pond with a probe, and found that the pond was actually very dry. Only a little bit of milky white liquid that was almost negligible settled in the bottom of the pond. And that scent of scent, it is this little milky white liquid that exudes. What is this? Bai Luo asked curiously. Xianxia didn't speak but reached out and touched the milky white liquid at the bottom of the pool, leaned towards Bila, and ordered, "Open your mouth." Bai Luo opened her mouth subconsciously, and Xianxia directly poked his finger in. At the next moment, Bai Luo's eyes widened, and she couldn't help but stick out her small tongue, curling a few times on Xianxia's fingers, licking all the inexplicable liquid clean. Visibly with the naked eye, the girl's complexion became rosy, not emotional or shy, but at this moment, she felt that her strength of chi and blood essence had increased a lot. The previous chi and blood essence was drifting due to injury, but solved at this moment. Meditate and refine it, don't waste it. A weird smile appeared on Xianxia's face as he ordered. Oh. Bai Luo obediently walked aside. Before leaving, she gave Xianxia a harsh look. Both of them obviously thought of the absurd things that happened in the palace of Xianxia in Floating Fragrance City when they were young and vigorous. Although it has been nearly 30 years, the experience is too special. Who will forget it? Especially Bai Luo's small mouth, thin and tender, delicate and ruddy, showing a row of small white teeth when she speaks and smiles, which is very lethal. After Bai Luo meditated cross-legged and began to refine the life essence, Xianxia turned his eyes away and looked at the back of the rockery with excitement. When he came here that day, he had vaguely guessed that there should be a place behind the rockery and there should be a pure life growth wine cream hidden. What he and the old woman and others obtained were only products after dilution. Now it seems that what he had guessed that day was correct. After all, that day, he and the old woman and the others scraped the pool upside down without leaving anything, but when he arrived here today, there was some thin life growth wine cream, which is enough to explain everything. If only Xianxia by himself alone wanted to find out where the pure life growth wine cream was hidden, it might be a little difficult to do, but for this moment, he was fully prepared. With the thought, Xianxia released the stone puppet from the black book space, took out a container specially used for the liquids and gave it to it, and then pointed to the rockery in front. The stone puppet understood, and shook his figure, and ran directly into the rockery. A weird thing happened. When the stone puppet's body touched the rockery, it seemed to become an intangible thing, merged directly into it, and disappeared instantly. But in Xianxia's perception, he could vaguely perceive the position of the stone puppet, and he felt that it was constantly going deeper in, and it was hundreds of meters away from him, and he stood there waiting expectantly. The stone puppet can even drill a hole in the colored glass 6,000 imaginary colored glass mountain, and it is naturally easy to find something here. Less than a stick of incense time, the figure of the stone puppet suddenly came out of the rockery, jumped happily in front of Xianxia, spit out the vessel. Xianxia stretched out his hand and took the vessel over, letting out his spiritual mind and peeping inside, and couldn't help grinning. There was a milky white liquid about 1 foot square in the vessel. Although it was a liquid, it was extremely thick, more than 10 times richer than the life growth wine cream in the pool before. This is the purest life growth wine cream, without being diluted, one of the 3 great divine waters in the star territory. Xianxia was in a good mood. He didn't expect this trip to be so smooth. This time he entered the Emperor Garden. His goals were only 2, one was the world spirit, and the other was life growth wine cream. Although the former took a bit of setbacks, he finally got what he wanted. As for the latter, he got it without any hindrance. All this is thanks to the mystery of the stone puppet. If it weren't for its help, Xianxia estimated that it would be difficult for him to go so far to get the life growth wine cream. Now that's alright. With so much life growth wine cream to help, he no longer have to worry about the amount of golden blood, and even replacing his blood with pure golden blood is not impossible anymore. After looking at it happily for a while, Xianxia solemnly put away the life growth wine cream. Bai Luo also opened her eyes at this moment, with a look of joy on her face. How do you feel? Xianxia asked casually. A lot better. I should be able to fight with others now. Bai Luo sighed softly. These few days she have been staying with Yongkai. Under his shelter, Bai Luo is also quite anxious, even though Yongkai has shown strength. It is breathtaking, but here is the Emperor Garden, with many crises, and one more person always has more power. Now she dare not say that the cultivation base is fully restored, at least it is not a burden. Where are we going now? Bai Luo asked, standing up. Follow me, there is another good thing over there. Yongkai grinned, his expression calm. The good thing he was referring to was naturally the stone monument that Qiantong was trapped in that day. The reason why Qiantong ventured deep into this place was to bring a refiner to comprehend his refining experience. The stone monument contained the deepest refining way. After being relieved from the Emperor Garden that day, the refiner became enlightened. Not long ago, there was news that this person had been promoted to the level of void-grade item refining expert, showing the great value contained in the steel. Now that he has arrived at this place, Yongkai certainly doesn't want to miss it. If possible, he wants to take away all the stone tablets. Moreover, if Yongkai wanted to find Yang Yan, he would also have to pass there. Anyway, it was just a drop-in, and it shouldn't waste much time. To be continued.